Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar. I think this is the first time I've presented since Integrate. So been a busy summer. I hope everybody's keeping well. I hope there's lots of really cool integration and Azure stuff going on for everybody. Today, so Ezra asked me to talk a little bit about some of the things that have been happening with Serverless 360. And also what I want to do is kind of relate to a real world project and kind of show a little bit about how we're using this in the real world, how it helps us solve some of the gaps in the Azure capabilities to provide great business solutions. So we're going to go through a little bit of a journey about how serverless can fit into your organization from an operational support perspective. So we're going to go through a few slides. I'm going to have a little bit of a demo that I'll talk through some real world type solution, and we'll just try and lay it all together, and then we'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions. So question number one, or the kind of fundamental base of this presentation, is why is Azure support hard for an organization to do? So we've been doing IT for many years. The cloud makes it so that we can deliver better solutions, we can deliver componentized modular solutions, and we have Azure that has so many different things available. And one of the things I've been talking to some of the people at Serverless 360 about is this idea of kind of reference architectures. So we find a lot of customers have a toolkit that they use to build certain types of solution. So here's what I would view as being a very classical toolkit based on an Azure integration platform. So if your company's building integration solutions at scale on Azure, you'll probably be using these types of features here. So we've got things like logic apps, API management, data factory. And you know, when you think about how many different technologies and skill sets are required to build a solution and support a solution, there's a lot of stuff here. You know, it's very difficult to get somebody who's at a senior level of experience in all of these different technologies, and that's for your most experienced people. But when you think about the support of your IT systems, having people who can have enough experience in all these technologies it either costs you a lot of money or it's a really difficult problem to solve. So this is just the integration area. But if we move on to other types of solutions, so also I've worked with customers building enterprise data platform solutions, and you can see here we've got a customer who would be building a data platform. They've got things like Data Lake, Synapse, SQL, Event Hubs, Cosmos. Again, you've got a similar toolkit. Now, the great thing is one of the modular the benefits of the modular approach on Azure is there's a lot of these features which can take part in multiple reference architectures. So if you think about functions, you think about logic apps, data factories, they're quite common to a number of different types of solution. So that's definitely a good thing. But again, you know, we've got quite a lot of technologies that you need to be aware of and how to support. And then if we think about it, you know, just taking a bit of a tangent from my normal comfort zone in the integration space, I actually did some work with a LAMP stack migration from AWS to Azure PaaS. So that was a move from infrastructure to platform as a service, as well as vendor. And again, we've got a number of technologies involved here. So we had things like web apps, we've got Redis cache, you know, front door, and a whole boatload of things. So again, you've got the same problem. You've got all these different technologies. How do you support this solution at scale? So if we think about, you know, we've looked at 3 different scenarios there. The common challenge across all of them is we've got this, you know, this requirement to have a lot of support for a lot of different skills. So I think, you know, those diagrams, there's about 34 skills on the integration platform, 30 on the data platform, and 22 in the web platform. How many experts does your organization have who can cover all of those skills? How many people do you have in each area who are you know, skilled enough to support the day-to-day business running versus the actual development of new solutions? So it's just a really, you know, difficult space to find people who can support your solutions effectively without it having to always fall back on this small group of experts you might have who built the solution in the first place. So if we think of the typical support use case or the path of support most organizations have, we have this idea that we have business super users who would probably get a call from their end users telling them, they need a bit of help with something. If they can't help, they'd escalate it to the level 1 IT support, level 2 IT support, level 3, and that goes through to experienced developers and then experts at the end. And the common things we see is that, typically for a lot of the cloud solutions, level 1 and 2 IT support and business super users have very little visibility of what's going on behind the scenes. They may see a pretty UI at the end of it, but they can't really do a lot due to lack of visibility and a lot of security challenges around the support of a solution. Next up, we have the level 3 support person, and quite often they might not have enough experience to be able to support the solution. So they may have some access and some experience for certain bits, but it's typically that they can't really do a lot. And what I tend to find in many companies is that the support cases tend to always go to the developers or the experts, and very few of these support cases can get dealt with by the by the level 1, 2, and 3 support. And I think that's a big problem for many organizations. The more time that your developers and your experts are spent dealing with day-to-day support activities, the more you're not delivering business value, and the more your total cost of ownership would go up. So, just to throw made up ballpark figures, just to give us a rough idea, maybe, for many organizations, maybe 10% of calls might get handled by level 3 IT support, and maybe 80-90%, something like that, end up going back to the experienced Azure people, and that's a big cost. So the idea is, can we do something about that? And today we're going to talk about 2 modules of Serverless 360. So up on the top here, we've got the left-hand modules, business activity monitoring, and that's targeted at business super users, level 1 and level 2 IT support. And the idea is, can we give them a consumable view of what's happening in their business processes that lets them have a degree of self-service? So if we can let them self-serve, maybe they can deal with some of the day-to-day questions and problems that we might have in the system, and we can start pushing some of that support to the left on this diagram. Next, we've got Serverless 360 business applications, and that's really aimed at the level 1, 2 support people and also level 3 support people. And the idea is that without you having to be an Azure expert, can we group some resources together from Azure in a way that lets them be described as an application, and then we can give them some basic training to support the day-to-day operations of the application, put a degree of automated monitoring in there as well, and hopefully we can let them do a lot more than they can do now without them having to go into the Azure portal, without them having to navigate the maze to find the right resources that they need to troubleshoot a certain problem. And if let's say we can move 50, 60, 70% of the support burden further left, then the idea is that that'll lower the support costs for your organization for the solutions you build on Azure. That's really the use case we're trying to sort of solve, or the business problem we're trying to solve. So if we think in Serverless 360, there's really 3 modules, and 2 of them we're going to focus on today. So business activity monitoring is about end-to-end tracking of business process transactions happening across your systems. Can we manage and monitor them and have a business-friendly view, regardless of what technology they're built in? Second is business apps. This is about grouping your resources together and creating an operations-focused view, regardless of whether your resources are deployed in multiple Azure subscriptions, multiple different resource groups. Whatever your deployment layout is, doesn't really matter that much. The idea is we'll bring the things that work together to solve a problem into a scope, and then we'll make it easier to manage the operations from a day-to-day perspective. They're the 2 for today. The other thing I want to kind of call out is Azure Documenter. So there's another feature that we have, which is about automating the generation of documentation for your Azure solutions. There's also some really great cost comparison stuff in there. So I've been having a little bit of a look at that recently, and I think that's definitely something people should check out if you you're trying to work out, how do I analyze and manage my cost in Azure? How do I make sure that I'm spotting increasing trends where my costs are going up, and I can manage to make sure I'm getting good value for money? So that's a feature we'll probably cover in a future webcast. So what I wanted to do was talk a little bit about how Serverless 360 relates to a real world story. So I've been doing a lot of work with a customer who's on a massive IT program.
Covey.co